also been doing cinematics for Destiny, Gears of War, and Outriders. What's that job? What's it like directing cinematics for those massive franchises?
Please, ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Sava Zivkovic.
What's up,
Hello.
Sava?
Hey guys.
How you doing?
All right, I guess. I've been speaking to Jacqueline like before you guys got on board, but it's a weird thing doing this from home, but at the same time, like it's nice having this because of the whole worldwide situation. Like I sure am missing all those events, so it's gonna be fun, hopefully.
I'm sad that we're not running around Europe this year together.
Yeah.
And Sava, you're at home in Belgrade, Serbia, yeah?
Yeah.
What time of night is it there?
It's just 7 p.m. Yeah, so not too late.
Gotcha.
I'm usually a bit of a night owl anyway, so this is like my start of the day, really.
Oh, really? How late do you usually go?
No, it's I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I used to do that. I'm trying to kind of rebalance a little bit of my work life. So now I'm kind of like taking it back and trying to be as normal as possible.
Totally. I mean, circadian rhythm's a real thing. We talk about that because we have opposite clocks. You know, Max is a morning lark, and I'm a night owl too. But it doesn't necessarily. Beethoven was one, and Mozart was the other. So it doesn't necessarily speak to any bit of artistic prowess. It's just a thing that we're born with and we develop.
Yeah, I guess so. That too.
Well,
yeah.
You bring up a really good point that it is strange doing this from home, and this is our work from home edition of a festival because we know each other. I mean, I guess you guys met at IFCC in Croatia many years ago, and then Sava, you and I got to meet for the first time when Max and I were out at Playgrounds in the Netherlands. Yep. I think 2 or 3 years ago, right about the time you were doing the Build Your World video with us.
Yeah, I mean, the IFCC thing wasn't like, it seems like ages ago, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's only been 3 years, I believe. It's 2017, mm-hmm. And then you and I, Banks, we met like 2018, I believe. So like by some accounts, it's just yesterday. But it does feel like a lot of time has passed.
Well, so much has happened in that time. You know, I think when we first met, you were premiering one of your first big short films at IFCC. And then from there, you know, you kind of exploded on the scene as this cinematics director for some of the largest video games out there. We also saw you do the Playgrounds title last year. Mm-hmm. But since then, you've also been doing cinematics for Destiny, Gears of War, and Outriders. What's that job? What's it like directing cinematics for those massive franchises?
Can you hear me all right now? But just by the way.
Yeah, you
cool.
sound good.
Yeah, you cut off for a second, but I think I got the gist of the question. It's like the differences of working on those personal shorts versus like the bigger franchises that I'm working on now. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been a hell of a ride, man. Like, I mean, as you would probably imagine, I think. When I think we talked about this like plenty of times, but when we've done that IFCC film, like the opening for the IFCC, and for Playgrounds, really, like those were within the same year, and both of them kind of had a big impact on kind of the direction in which I was moving in the industry. But at first, like when we actually did that IFCC film, like that was never done really to kind of, like, I'm gonna do this short and then I'm gonna expect a director's job after that. Like that was never really a plan. That was never really something I could have even imagined. But it kind of happened. Like Access saw it, they reached out to me, and it just sort of happened. So I guess like the biggest difference for me is coming from a CG artist background where I was kind of a generalist and doing a bit of everything. All of a sudden you're like put into a director's seat where you're no longer thinking about the rest of the technicality of the process. You're just thinking about the creative side of the project, and not have to be involved technically while liberating. It's also like very frightening at the start because it just felt such a weird jump immediately. Like you'd be like my first reaction was, there's a giant team working on these trailers, obviously, and And when my first Destiny project, like we were essentially like, I was given like a storyboard artist, and he'd drawn amazing boards, and I'd say great. And then we'd get like the animators and the modelers, and they make everything look awesome. I'd say great. And then the texture artist and the lighting artist, they do everything awesome, and I say great. And then we go into a review, and they say, wow, amazing work, Sava. And I'm like, I didn't do shit. Like I just felt like completely like, well, you know, because it was just such a different thing overall. But I kind of like slowly started to understand, I guess, what directing is, and kind of got to appreciate that other side of it. And now I'm kind of completely locked into that, and finding that process to be, I mean, that's something I used to know, like subconsciously, that I was always drawn to the creative side of the project. The technicalities of it, I still kind of enjoy. That's why I'm like demoing Unreal today probably, but I still enjoy like fiddling around with technicalities, but ultimately it's not about that for me anymore. Like long ago it wasn't. For me, it's always about that creative concept of the piece, and that was something I was able to kind of identify very early on. I guess it's just that is sort of the direction I want to be heading in, and I think like that's also probably like one of the reasons I was always drawn to doing all my personal short films. It was never a calculated, I guess, move to do these shorts and then hope that something will come out of it. I was always just, for whatever reason, I was just drawn to making as many of them as I could, and luckily it yielded, it paid off eventually. So, yeah. I don't know if that answers the question though.
Yeah, it does. You know, I think we got a question in the chat that I think is really good, especially, you know, for everyone who's tuning in on Twitch. I don't know where you are in the world, and actually I would love for you guys to post where in the world you guys are. But Siddhartha Valuri says, how has the experience been directing cinematics remotely? I want to kind of take it one step further and say, you're in Belgrade and the studio is in Scotland. Yeah. And so, you know, while COVID is happening, you know, and everyone's in lockdown, this isn't too different from how you normally work. Can you talk about what it's like to direct a studio there?
It is a good question, but yeah, to your point, you're absolutely right. Like the whole COVID situation, while it is kind of awful how it impacted the world, on one end, animation is one of those industries that stayed pretty much unaffected. To me, I'm like nothing really changed. Because I'm usually directing remotely, like I am working remotely with Axis. So my usual, like if there wasn't this wonderful COVID situation, usually what happens is if the project runs for say 5 months, I would work from home. I would go to the office occasionally for some key moments in production. So for example, maybe the first month of the project, I would go there for maybe a week or two while we were nailing down the story and nailing down the storyboards and the previs and the layout and stuff like that. I would then go ahead sometime like towards the middle of production once we're actually recording the motion capture shoot. So I would be directing the actors on the motion capture stage and stuff like that. That's one of the most important visits overall. And then lastly, like it's not hugely important because all reviews happen on shotgun anyway, but I would usually go towards the end of the project when the final lighting and compositing is done, so we could kind of like have a final look of everything in the studio. That like the only thing that really changed with this situation now is the fact that I couldn't go there for the motion capture shoot. So I am on a project at the moment that because of the travels and restrictions with travels, I just couldn't be there. We've had our first remote motion capture shoot, and that was weird. That was a weird one. It turned out great though, because we kind of planned for it. I mean, everybody was aware that this is not going to be a standard situation. And what really worked is having another director from Axis on the motion capture shoot. So we were kind of driving it almost in a way that was actually like his idea, because he's also a live action director. I'm specifically, for me, I'm mostly working in animation. But because of his live action experience, like he was able to kind of drive it in the way that it wouldn't be too dissimilar to how you would do it on a live action set. Like you would have a director sat in a video village, and then first AD would be with the actors, and they would have an earpiece. And then if you were in a video village, kind of looking at the monitors and looking at the feed, you would kind of be, I guess, radioing in on the AD and like conveying the stuff for the actors in a sense, if it was like a large set. And that was essentially what we've done here. Like I've had essentially a Zoom setup where I kind of, where I saw the entirety of the mocap volume. I was able to see and hear what the actors were doing. And then on the other end, I had like a Google Hangout link with my assistant director. And I was able to just kind of have a one-line communication with him where I was kind of immediately like, as I see what they're doing, I can feedback to him and then he can feedback to the actors. So that was rather smooth because of that setup. It was a bit weird just getting adjusted to it because, you know, like once you're on set, like so many things can go wrong and timings and everything, and it makes it much more easier if you're there. But I guess in the end, it didn't really impact us too much. We were able to wrap it on time. So yeah, I can't really speak from the other perspective of the studio. Like how does that work? I know like the situation now has been going on for 6 months for Axis. They've been working 6 months remotely from home, everyone, the whole studio. And the problem at the start was just kind of setting up the remote workstations and using the network and stuff like that. Because for a studio of that size, that's kind of the biggest, I guess, problem. Not necessarily having actors actually working from home. Actors, I mean, artists. So yeah, that was the, but from a studio perspective, like I think it's still from my kind of outside view in, everything looks like it's going great. We've been able to deliver projects under this crazy time, so nothing's changed much overall, I think, in the terms of how the business is run, I guess. Totally. But yeah.
Superbly insightful in a strange time for everyone as we all figure this out.
And the longest answer.
well, Sava, we could chat for this entire session, but I know you've got a demo planned. We really want to get to that. So let's dive in there.
I was gonna say planned is the strong word.
Well, let's see what you got going on. I'm sure everyone's excited. So we're looking at Unreal, and it looks like the Brutalist kit, yeah?
Yeah, it's the Eastern European in me, kind of, I guess, going for the motherland. It's. I mean, I've just put it up in Unreal. It's. I guess it's a very basic setup. What I have here is just the lighting. It's like a 360 HDR, I guess, of the whole scene. It's not really giving the lighting, but there's like a direct light coming in from there. And it's just like the scattered buildings. I just got them in the scene. I didn't really work on anything. I'm going to go with because I wanted to do everything live, but reasons might be actually different. It is fun though, because I mean I obviously like seen this kit once you guys published it, but I never really like opened it. This is the first time when I opened it yesterday is just seeing like what is actually in there, and it's really interesting stuff. Like this little guy here, like that's roughly like I guess 30 minutes, 40 minutes ish away from my place. You didn't see it, Max, when you were here, but you saw this guy, as I remember.
I remember us going to the top of that tower.
I can actually like prove it with photo images. This is Max, by the way. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but this is Max trying to do a Slavic squat in the tower, big ass concrete tower in Belgrade.
What do you mean trying?
Well, I mean, the form is kind of like this heel is coming up. You're lacking cigarettes, the tracksuit. Like, we can go into the whole review if you want. No, yeah, I just thought that was gonna be.
That's awesome.
That was gonna be an interesting segue, but you can cut that out for later if you want.
No, we're keeping that.
Yeah. Should I just like start?
Yeah, dive in.
Just do your thing, do your magic.
I have no idea what I'm doing, by the way. So the thing is, what I want to preface,
very modest, folks.
what I want to preface with this, and like,
don't preface, just go for it.
Yeah,
all right,
just go for it.
I'm very new to Unreal. I'm very new to Unreal. That's the only thing I want to say. Like, I find it.
We want to see you be human. Everything we've seen online of yours is super polished and finished and grandiose. We want to see the process. Show us some mistakes. Show us some learning. Teach us something about being present.
And I'll preface that Sava is a 3ds Max expert who this summer was like, I'm going to dive into Blender. And then right before this demo, we're like, cool, yeah, that's awesome, but can you demo in Unreal?
So we're purposely taking a look at this at Sava here in a new situation so that we can learn new stuff with him.
Yeah, that's sorry. Like, this is also like the first time I'm actually demoing something, so it might go like horribly wrong, but that's fine, I guess. So I guess just the one thing that I do want to mention is like, in terms of like why I like started using Unreal is it's been up there for a while, but to me, I guess the thing with it, what fascinates me the most about it is the fact that sort of like with all the like pre-built stuff like Kitbash, like Megascans stuff and stuff like that, like you can assemble the environments like super freaking quickly, man. And with the fact that it is real-time rendering, like you're cutting down so much of the production stuff and time that goes into actually like building this thing and rendering it out. But the biggest reason, like all of that stuff, building and rendering and whatever, like those technical bits and pieces, like all of that is not really important in the grand scheme of things from the directorial perspective, if you will. To me, the chance of actually like walking around the scene in real-time lighting and exploring the scene with lighting is kind of like the biggest reason like why I wanted to use this. The real-time cinematography, if you will. Like early on in the production, if you're kind of when you're kind of figuring out the camera angles and stuff like that, where traditional methods. Let me just select this guy. See, so this is where my speed is lagging, but yeah. So if you like in traditional work environments, I guess, like in general with traditional softwares like 3ds Max and Maya, like you don't have this quality of a viewport whatsoever. And when you're blocking things out with grayscale models, like compositionally, like you're only focusing on the geometry in the frame. But so much about cinematography is, well, not so much, like almost all about cinematography is the lighting. And you're losing out a huge amount of creative thinking, because in animation, traditionally, lighting was so separate from the layout stage. In the layout, you would find your angles, you would compose everything to work geometrically, but then like 5 months later, you would actually get to the lighting process, and then you would start kind of lighting the scene, but you couldn't really affect the cameras and the compositions because everything is so locked, everything is so built towards that specific angle of view, you know? But with this, like with Unreal and with Blender, like that's why I've really started to dig Blender just for previous purposes. Like you can walk around the scene and have a really nice glimpse of the whole of the promise of the final look, if you will, because it's not up to par with offline render engines yet, but it provides for an amazing result to have early on, and that provides you with a lot of like creative decision making, because you're not just framing to gray, boring models. You're seeing light, you're seeing shadow, you're seeing reflection, all of those things like you would see if you're actually on a real set. So if you're on a real set, you would find a shadow that's nice, and you're like, oh, that looks interesting. I wasn't planning really to frame against that shadow, but maybe my actor, or I see something that I wasn't planning for, and it kind of elevates the story. And if we were just looking at, where's that unlit thing, and it's like, this even has textures, but it's completely like, it doesn't give you like that additional information that influences the creative so much. So that's my little ramble on that. I'm gonna get to work now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that for those in the chat right now who don't know too much about Sava's work, one of the things I think that makes him very unique as a director is how much of the previs he does himself. And I've seen the previs cuts that he'll put together in, an insane amount of time, in a matter of days. He'll have an edit he'll have an edit with full CG previs that looks almost final in terms of the beats and the pacing of a project, and then hands that kind of over to his team to say, hey, this is the blueprint. Let's start to fill in the gaps.
It's something that we're constantly talking about, is a minimum viable product. How do you show your idea? And that's what a script is. If the best you can do is put words on a page, that's better than not having words on a page. But the moment you can start adding images to that, you can start conveying more and more ideas. And by being able to execute previs at this speed on your own is an unbelievable talent that is available to you all out there as well. If you, by using the softwares and the tools that are available to you now, you can start pushing your ideas so much further on your own, so that you can communicate that to other people as soon as you need to start bringing on more teammates.
So Sava, you've thrown atmosphere in here. You have a character going.
Yeah, it's our little IFCC dude. I just kind of felt, I want to do a little bit of a demo with the actual buildings and show everything what's going on. But I had an idea for the piece that I actually wanna have at the end of this thing. So I kind of threw in my little guy here. He doesn't have textures on. Let me see. All right, give me just 1 minute. I want to make this guy look nice. So no, this is not the right one. Fabric, metal.
I love how drag and drop that is.
Oh yeah, that was kind of very surprising, like how easy. Well, I mean, easy. Like Unreal is super easy when you set it up. The actual setting up time, like that's what kind of takes time a little bit. Actually, importing the assets and stuff like that. Once everything is in, it kind of becomes, I guess, easy. So I have here, like what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna full screen this guy, just so you see like how it all comes together. But on the other screen, I have like another view, and I'm going to be working in that because I can remain in the perspective view and adjust everything from the point of view of the camera. Because again, like I'm using this, my use of Unreal bases on the kind of the cinematic approach, not actual in-game stuff. So what I'm interested in is does it look good from the perspective of the camera, not from every angle. It's essentially like lying. So it looks, the whole scene looks fine here, but if you go outside, like everything's broken. that's that's like the stuff that you do is you just where is my grid? Like that's what you do in filmmaking. If it's outside of the frame, it's not really important unless it actually impacts stuff on the frame. So yeah,
just going back a second for the setup side of Unreal, you're using the new 4.0 kits, right?
Yeah, the latest one, the latest batch.
Awesome. In case you guys haven't seen it, 4.0 kits came out a month ago with Unreal Native files, so you should be able to load them in, and they should be good to go right out of the box. Did you do any adjustments or anything to the kits? Did you tweak any textures or materials, or is this straight out of the box?
This is straight out of the box, I believe. I think there was like a slight tweak on the glass shader a little, I think, but it's got something to do with the depth of field. Actually, it's not. It was like for the most part out of the box, and it's already like it's just drag and drop stuff. Awesome. And that's the kind of the funnest part about it, I guess, is just playing with Legos. I think like everyone who uses Kitbash 3D says the same thing, is that, oh, it's like playing with Legos, because it really is. Like it's really like. All right, so give me just 1 second. So what I'm gonna do now, like I have something going on, and because like obviously like this is a very limited time for anything of substance. What is this? So yeah, I'm focusing like specifically on this sort of camera angle where I'm kind of like using this shape here. Well, first and foremost, like the shape is freaking awesome, but I'm using it to kind of block out all of the, I guess, stuff that's behind it. Like with these kits, it's really simple to kind of block out the cityscape just like this by having something in the foreground that actually blocks what's happening on the ground level. Usually in 3D, like the ground level is probably like the most difficult thing to do when talking about environments. You'd be surprised like how many smaller details go into that. But with actual buildings, like you throw in like large shapes, you throw in a fog, and it's already working beautifully. And I know you guys have like other kits for the ground. I just haven't had a chance to actually pop them in the scene. But I can like adjust the fog. I can maybe, the lighting is bugging me, so I can just adjust the lighting slightly. And whichever way I find it to be working. Yeah, something like this, maybe.
I feel like when I see your compositions, you always have an amazing sense of scale, and it's not just the character, but it's very much the way you position the camera. You always do these very interesting graphic shapes on screen. Can you talk about why this camera, why you chose to go symmetrical, why you've made the decisions you've made here?
That's a good question. Let me think about that for a second, actually. I don't know, man. Like, honestly, like I think like a lot of that stuff, like when I do this stuff, it's, I honestly feel a lot of that is kind of instinctual in a way. I do think like if I find a shape that I like this guy, like it's such a strong shape that it almost like feels like, like these two lines are pointing down to the center, and if you place something in the center, it's probably going to look nice. So it's kind of based on the experience, I guess. But I mean, a lot of that is kind of instinctual in a way. It is to, like there is a lot to be said like about the actual camera angles and stuff, because that is kind of the biggest part of my job. And once we're actually doing the productions, and let me just see one thing. I don't know why I have like a separate layer of fog. That's like fog clouds. Oh, there they are. Mm-hmm. There we go. It's animated actually. But yeah, so like when we actually do like short films, like Freight, for example, like a lot of that stuff comes in from the actual story perspective. Like how do you want viewer to feel when he watches this? Like, is this a happy place? Is this a sad place? What's the mental state of the character? And then how do you wanna showcase that? Let me just stop this out to save. But yeah, like you can go like, if this is an epic reveal thing, like a centered shot might imply that the character's mind state is also like he's pretty feeling centered and feeling successful, or whatever you want to call it. But then you might go something like this, where you kind of, I guess, look down on a character. Give me just 1 second. Where's my camera? This guy. And then focus. You might be looking down on him as he's climbing these stairs. So like that's saying one thing. Like just looking at this shot, like, or this moment in this whatever story it's gonna be, there's a guy climbing the stairs. All right, I don't know what that means, but like if you frame him like this, we are looking down on him, and there is like an implied sentence, statement there if you're looking down at somebody. But then at the same time, like if you take the same moment, a character climbing the steps, and you frame him like this, you're looking up at him. He looks pretty powerful, climbing these massive steps. He's pretty centered. Like that was off-centered, this is centered, and then that was looking down, and this is looking up. So it's like really like simple stuff like that, Like even like this looks very imposing. Like this looks more kind of like, he's a badass kind of a deal. But then like you go in super close from a different angle, and not so powerful, right? I mean, I don't know. Like maybe you're not feeling that. Maybe it's just a subjective thing. But I do feel like that a lot of that stuff has to do with how you kind of design your camera language and your shot language, and how that kind of connects to the story. So as I was mentioning, like, I mean, we've done this, if you actually go back to IFCC, we've done this in the IFCC titles as well. Like, there's a very similar shot like this at the beginning. Like, when we first see our character, like, this is how we see him. We're kind of looking down on him. But then at the very end of the short, well, he's not standing straight here, and he's not in focus. But it was almost like, let's bring this guy up. Whoops. You know, we were kind of looking up at him like this. So like, that's kind of like, you know, like overall over the course of the story, there's a language that's being used in the cameras that helps imply what the story is, especially like in films that are purely visually driven. This stuff is really important to kind of nail. At least from my experience, like, again, like, it's not really something that's super set in stone. Like, there's no rules for this stuff. But it is like, you know, it's what you preach kind of a thing. Like, to me, that is one of the most important things that I really like to focus on very early on. So yeah.
Feral Fox 82 in the chat asks, how do you direct your team? Is it concept drawings? Is it, do you make a mini scene like this? And I think what you're showing is, you know, very much what I've seen on your other projects is you kind of put together animatics like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't really draw. I can do some Photoshop stuff. I can do like very simple stuff like that. But where my biggest value, I think, is in terms of animation pipeline is actually like being aware of the whole pipeline and knowing how everything works, and doing what you just said, doing all the previzes and doing not all the previzes. I do my initial previs where I kind of, that is my sketch in a way. Like, it contains all the information in terms of framing, in terms of shot construction and kind of scene construction, but it's like very rough. But that can be like injected by the team at Axis, and then that kind of helps speed up the production, because with my explanation and with those scene files provided, like that's a very clear guideline on what needs to happen. Sometimes, like, that really depends on the time. Like, if I have the time to do that, I will do that. If not, we'll probably have the more traditional approach of actually kind of, sorry, give me just 1 second, of going through the storyboard process and the more kind of traditional animation approach. And that's fine too. Like, everything has its value. Like, sometimes I really do prefer the sorry, I'm just resetting my scene. I really do prefer like the 2D animated drawing kind of state of it, because like you can really imply so many things with drawing that you can't with 3D. No matter how good looking your previs is, like it fundamentally lacks that sense of motion, because like super early 2D stuff tends to be super stiff. So that's one advantage of I guess the traditional 2D approach.
Gotcha.
So I switched my camera angle here. Yeah, sorry. I switched my camera angle here. I had this little Megascans area set up. Like this is something like I really wanted to make for the final I guess image that I'm gonna make, or for the final piece of animation that I'm gonna make in the following days. But this is sort of like very, I guess, reminiscent of our IFCC setup. So like what's really cool about this as well is like I can like mixing Kit Bash stuff with Megascan stuff. Like you can obviously like mix in the textures as well, but I don't have that for the architecture now. I do have it for the ground. So if I just take this guy and paste it here, it's gonna give me a different result. Or this guy, this might be all right. Like it really is looking nice. And like this is one of the things that I really appreciate about Unreal, is just kind of assembling stuff like this super fast.
And the Megascans that Sava's referencing is a library of organic stuff like the rocks and ground plane that you see that comes free inside of Unreal.
Yeah. So like you can assemble stuff like this like super freaking fast. Pop in some rocks, no, this is not gonna work. Rotate it around, just jam it in there. Like, I think this is one of the the advantages of doing it with this organic stuff is like it's super forgiving where you kind of placed it and how you integrate it. It all really depends on the shot, but it's super helpful. You just duplicate it, rotate it around, and it's the same thing. Like you can do, it's the same approach really, whether you're using organic stuff or the architecture stuff. It's the same kind of thing. So this stuff closer to the camera because it's out of focus implies a bit of depth and gives the whole scene a bit more depth. What I almost feel like as more as I'm working on this stuff, the more kind of simple I like to go. So even this atmospheric fog, if I go like this to me is looking freaking great. It is cutting off the kit bash stuff though, and so I'm gonna dial it back. I'm gonna dial it back slightly. There we go. And yeah, well, I guess I don't know how we are on time, but I guess just one last thing that I wanted to show, and this might be more interesting. Yeah, this will be more interesting with the buildings. Give me just 1 second.
And just so you know, Sava, we got about 5 minutes, but
yeah,
do you think?
Where is this thing? This guy. All right. So I'm just gonna go. Well, my mountain is there, so that's problematic. But let's find a different area that doesn't have a giant mountain hovering over it. I don't know. Something, whatever it is. Yeah, we'll just pop it on here. It's not a big issue. What I wanted to show is, so this is pretty awesome stuff specifically for cinematography. It's not perfect, but it's really good for Previz. So basically, you have this app that you can download on your phone called the Unreal Remote app, and you just connect. And you should be able to fire up this guy. Hopefully this doesn't freak out on me on the stream. Yeah, maybe. It's working.
Wow.
Can you guys still hear me? Yeah. So
Yep.
essentially, I don't know if you can see me as well, but essentially I'm controlling the camera with my phone now. And this isn't just staying in place. I mean, I can't stand up and walk around now, but if you were to walk around, you actually go into space. Maybe I can demo a little. It's gonna be really difficult because this is such a large scale environment, but effectively you're looking through your phone, and I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it in my phone screen as well. So it is your actual little virtual camera setup just on your iPhone. And this is the shitty one. This is the old one, the super old iPhone, but it still works beautifully. And
right.
And you can play animations from here. You can record the characters move around, and then you can find interesting compositions and shots. You can record all of this camera movement. If I press the red button thing, it's gonna give me a little prompt, and then it's gonna start recording.
And you could have characters animated through here that you'd be moving around and shooting.
Oh yeah, you can move them around. You can prompt them like you would actors. You have your little files set up. What's gonna happen here? You can have your little I guess file set up, and you just play you can prompt them when they start moving. You can tell the camera to constantly focus on them. There's a lot of awesome stuff you can do, and it's really specifically made for virtual production. It is though a bit laggy on the phone, but you can use an iPad for it, and with an iPad it works much better, and as well you have a much larger screen. But I think it's an awesome thing.
I mean, it is the at-home avatar setup.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely cool, man.
I mean, and the applications as we head more into virtual space, into AR, into VR, that's a pretty unbelievable tool to have at your fingertips, especially when we start talking about like minimum viable product, previs kind of ideals.
I don't know what the.
Well,
yeah, sorry.
Sava, what I'd love to, in our last time together, I want to chat about what is coming up for you. What's next for you? You're at Axis directing some big cinematics. We just saw the Huxley teaser that you directed, premiered here yesterday. What can people expect from you next?
Let me just find something that's a bit more pretty to look at, I guess. No, nothing's gonna work. It's just a bunch of stuff. Sorry to end on such a weird frame, but this is gonna have to do. Is this shot 10? Yeah. Shot
I mean,
10.
in 32 minutes of demo time,
I managed to make this.
You put together two separate shots with the character and demoed real time using your phone as the lens within your 3D scene. I mean, not bad, buddy. Probably not what to be expected from your disclaimer at the beginning. I think you nailed it.
Well, it was fun, but yeah, just to real quick answer Max's question. So yeah, I mean, that teaser that premiered yesterday, that, like, as Ben stated, that's part of a larger thing that we're working on at the moment. Obviously, like, I am sort of not really full time with Axis, but there's a lot of projects kind of cooking up there as well. And apart from that, like, we've taken a bit of a break from our usual, I guess, short film, if you want to call it a schedule. It's not really a schedule, but every year we try to do at least one of our personal short films. We've been on a bit of a break for that this year because we were planning, and we are still planning, something bigger. So hopefully you'll see more of that in the future. But yeah, that's really like all I gotta say about that right now. Focusing in on more real-time stuff, and definitely with those upcoming short films that I plan on, I really plan on using Unreal on pretty much all of them, because it's such a game changer. It's a steep learning curve for somebody who's been adjusted to one way of working for over 10 years. It's not 3ds Max, it's not Blender, and don't expect it to be, because you just get frustrated. But once you accept it for what it is, it's a games engine. It's primarily made for video games, but you can do cinematics in it. So it's a different mindset a little bit, but once you get through it, like, I think it really has a lot to offer. So yeah, definitely gonna be using more of that.
I love that. And speaking of cinematics, at the break here, we're gonna show the Build Your World cinematic that you made using all the Kitbash kits. Darren Butler asked, any more Kitbash 3D cinematics? We'll save that for another day. Sava, thank you so much for joining us. We could not be more honored to have you here, and you've shown us some really cool insights that I think a lot of people out there in the chat will be able to really glean some interesting stuff and bring it into their own work.
Yeah, and you can see his Instagram link in the chat right now. Follow him on Instagram. Check out his Vimeo, and his Behance also it just has so much cool making of stuff. Sava, thank you so much.
Yeah, everyone in the chat, please.
Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.